Wonderful. So we'll call this meeting in order at 5 o'clock. Welcome, everyone. Any disclosures of indirect or direct pecuniary interest? Seeing anyone? Anyone? None? Okay, thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda for today, please?
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to make a revision to the agenda and add the joint meeting of the Dufferin County Section 10 Police Service Boards to new business.
To new business.
At the meeting that they had on March 12th.
Joint meeting. Okay. Thank you.
Chair Taylor, I have an addition as well. Just to item 8.4, the addition of my special remuneration for March 8th is being submitted as well.
And I've got that here, but on that, if we could, as hopefully we'll remind each other as we get there, but I do have that noted, so thank you. Okay, so those two items, we now approve the agenda. Mayor Post. Ken, did you want to? Yep, thank you. All in favor? Yes, very good. So fix my screen here, there we go. So for the in-camera meeting, we did discuss a few items. And essentially they were, it was a strategic initiative that involves IT with the town. There was a report regarding a employee, and there was a report regarding a citizen interaction. And I think that's all we want. Oh, and then a report regarding grants or funding with the federal government. And outside of that, that's what was discussed and closed. So we will move on to the public session. At this time, I will read the land acknowledgement. So we'd like to acknowledge that the treaty lands in the territory of the Williams Treaty Nations and the Mississauga of the Credit First Nations. We also recognize that Dufferin County is a traditional territory of the Wendat and the Haudenosaunee and is home to the many Indigenous peoples today. So I guess it says here the motion that the board receive the above document. So we do have a document that relates to this because it's new. Is that what that's in reference to? Do we need to do that here? Okay, so I guess the document is essentially that moving forward, council has passed a motion that all committees will be a part of the land acknowledgement, have that part of your meeting schedule. And so there will be no debate on this. We will simply just receive that item. Did you want to, you look like you want to speak to that before we go?
I just wanted to note that the board has accepted that and has included it in its bylaw number 1 as part of its normal process.
Excellent. It's the right thing to do. Okay, so motion to receive that information regarding the land acknowledgement. Mayor Post. Ken, thank you. All in favor? Yes. And so at this time, I would turn it over in terms of presentations to Inspector DePasquale. Are you with us, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. I am. Hello, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well. It's my pleasure to provide you with an overview of the Town of Orangeville Police Services Board report for the 4th quarter.
Very good.
And I will just start off by an outline. We had no public complaints during the Q4 of 2023. Going through calls for service billing summary report, subject to any questions that the board may have or what have you. It looks fairly consistent, a slight increase in hours that we spent in 2023 versus 2022. Going to the violent crime section, there was overall decrease in 2023 compared to 2022 of 0.5% of violent crime. We did have a slight uptake in assaults over the same quarter, 2023 versus 2022. And in terms of property crime, we saw a slight increase in 2023 versus 2022, but an actual decrease of 30% in Q4 2023 compared to 2022. Drug crime, we saw a reduction both quarterly, 14.3%, as well as overall in 2023 compared to 2022 of 3.3%. Our clearance went up in 2023 for violent property and drug crime, 6.8% increase and a 10.9% increase in Q4 2023 compared to 2022. In terms of our POA charges, we had a slight decrease in Part 1 charges. Overall, 1,411 charges were laid in 2023 compared to 2022 with 1,439. We did, however, see an increase in Part 3 charges laid in 2023 compared to 2022. We saw 270 charges laid under Part 3 versus 168 in 2022. Looking at the motor vehicle collisions in the fourth quarter in Orangeville, as I scroll through it, the majority of the primary causal factors of collisions continue to be the big four, which is what our officers are looking for 24/7, 365. Aggressive driving, impaired driving by alcohol and or drug. Aggressive driving includes speeding, I should have said as well as inattentive driving and not properly using seatbelts or other occupant restraint systems. And I noted as well that a few of those crashes in 2023 Q4 included drivers who were arrested for impaired driving. We had a slight increase in traffic collisions in 2023. We had a total of 428 property damage crashes compared to 395 in 2022. We remain fairly consistent with non-fatal injuries. There were 28 non-fatal injury crashes in 2023 versus 29 in 2022, and we did not see any fatal crashes again in 2023. We had 69 false alarms in Q4 2023. And with respect to our action plan, we did have a total of 331.25 hours of ride, with the majority of ride during the festive ride season. So festive ride began November 15th and it ran until January 1st, 2024. We had 29 hours of festive ride during the month of November, or I should say majority of which were festive ride, as well as 23 hours of festive ride in the month of December. Foot patrol hours, a total of 776. Year-to-date ATV patrol hours, we had 14. We did not get a chance to go on the ATVs during this quarter. We had 25.5 hours of bicycle patrol. Again, we weren't able to go out this quarter. Trouble with youth occurrences, a total of 12 occurrences in October, 7 in November, and 11 in December. And mental health occurrences, total year-to-date was 610. 53 of those took place in October, 39 in November, and 54 in December. And impaired by alcohol occurrences, we had 31 overall year-to-date. We had 3 in October, 4 in November, and 1 in December. Impaired by drug, we had 8 overall throughout the entire year, 2 in October, 1 in November, and none in December. Distracted driving charges, a total of 73 were laid. 2 in October, none in November, 1 in December. Ride grant vehicles checked, a total of 424 vehicles were checked, again as part of the festive ride in the month of November 2023, and 1,000 vehicles in December 2023. From our traffic management side, again, our ongoing traffic initiatives where our officers are focused on the big four. Causal factors of collisions 24/7, 365, but in particular, we had 2 traffic initiatives. The first initiative that we had was over the Thanksgiving long weekend. It's a 4-day initiative, Operation Impact, organized by the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police, the intent to promote road safety through the big four. And we had festive ride, as I indicated. It began November 15th and it ended January 1st. Looking at our auxiliary unit, ours total of 111, close to 112 in October, 131 in November, and 106 hours of December. Some incredible work being done by our 5 auxiliary officers at Dufferin Detachment, with the majority of that time spent doing community policing. And I'll explain a little bit more about some of the great work that our auxiliaries were doing alongside with our uniformed members, as well as members of our community, including Town Council here in Orangeville. Going through some of our highlights, so there was some additions to our detachment leadership. Staff Sergeant Corey Chawartha used to be a member of the detachment several years ago and returned back to Dufferin Detachment as a staff sergeant. She oversees the support side of the detachment, and I came in as the detachment commander on October 2nd, 2023. And again, it's my pleasure to be part of the detachment, my pleasure to be part of Dufferin County and specifically the town of Orangeville. In December, our officers and our auxiliary unit were quite busy, in particular, again, the great work of our 5 auxiliary members that were collecting donations during the holiday season for our annual Toys for Tots, as well as donations towards the Salvation Army of Canada in Orangeville, as well as throughout the county. We were also working alongside our partners with Headwaters Healthcare Center for our toy donations, again, for our annual toy drive. We hosted a Dufferin County Winter Operations meeting at our Primrose Host location on Tuesday, December 12th. We were able to connect with our community partners, which allowed for a greater collaboration and communication between agencies. Thankfully, we didn't see too bad of a winter this year, although it seems like winter is still hanging on this week, and hopefully we'll be away by next week. And finally, Santa came to Orangeville, the detachment in Orangeville, and 74 children had the benefit and being able to meet Santa, and a great time by the entire community. I just want to touch upon our Thanksgiving long weekend stats. Again, over the 4-day period, October 6th to 9th, a total of 239 traffic-related charges were laid by Dufferin County OPP officers, 121 speeding, 9 stunt racing charges. So that's where drivers are alleged to have gone over the speed limit. It's 50 kilometers per hour or 40 kilometers per hour, depending on what the posted speed limit is. Impaired driving charges, there were 5 laid. 12 seatbelt charges and 92 other charges. So again, kudos to the outstanding work of our community for doing what they needed to do to keep themselves safe, as well as the Dufferin detachment officers that were out there doing the Thanksgiving long weekend initiative, keeping all of us safe while we were with our family and friends. And subject to any questions that anyone has, that's my presentation.
Okay. I have a few questions, but any other board members? Do you have any questions for the inspector? No? Okay. Couple of thoughts. One is, it's striking to me, Michael, on the Mental Health Act, it's almost doubled in terms of where we are from a year-to-date perspective, 303 versus 173 a year ago. Is that, what's the causal of that, I guess? Is that where we are as a society and the issues we're having, or are the officers just simply more aware of what's going on and more sensitive? We certainly have got programs in place that to help the officers deal with these things. Like, is it more prominent, or is it more awareness and ability for your team to deal with them? What's driving?
Good question. So I can't speak to the actual causal factors. I mean, mental health is a societal issue. And again, the importance of coming together as a community to look after and support each other. The officer's role, and again, we've got a great relationship with Headwaters, is to really provide the supports and the services to the people who need it most of the time upstream. So hopefully we're not seeing them downstream. Having said that, again, I can't provide actual details as to why there's an increase in occurrences. That could be caused by many reasons. To your point, it could be because our officers are having maybe more active, proactive interactions with members of the public. Our officers could also be called more often by either people in crisis or their family members or other social agencies that are looking at us to work together as a community to support members of the community that need support at the time.
Got it. Mayor Post? Yeah.
I wonder as well, that's a great question, Chair Taylor, and I wonder if the launch of our MCERT team has anything to do with the change in numbers, that maybe some of the calls are being coded differently as MCERT is responding to them. I wonder perhaps, Inspector, if that might have something to do with the increase that you're seeing in the number of calls, is having MCERT actually responding to them, which we didn't have previously, perhaps?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Post. I could certainly look into that answer and get back to you. I would say that could be a reason. Before MCERT, we would have had road officers just the same respond to. I mean, we do have a dedicated MCERT officer, but within each one of our 4 uniform platoons, we have officers as well that are trained to work alongside the MCERT nurse in the event that the MCERT dedicated officer isn't working or during the weekends as well.
Very good. Ian, did you have something?
Yeah, my recollection was in the past, the statistics showed less apprehensions as a result of the MCERT team. So I'm sorry, I was trying to find the statistic that you were referring to.
It's on page, sorry, I think it's on page 22. It is on page 22. Yep, in the numbers.
Let's see. So what are those numbers then? They represent contacts with the police, or?
Yeah.
So they are apprehensions.
And then they get filed under the Mental Health Act.
Calls for service, right. So they're not, so buried in here somewhere is the disposition of those calls. I mean, calls relating to mental health, and then there could be either an apprehension or a not apprehension, or.
Sorry, you're saying page 22. Are you referring? You're referring to the billing summary report, right?
I am. It's statutes and acts, and it's the third one down. There's Youth Criminal Justice Act, Landlord Tenant, and then it's simply Mental Health Act.
I see. So it's billing.
And it's 303 year to date this year versus 173 last year. And so I just kind of looked for trends and things that I thought was significant, and that's just
right. Okay.
Yeah. So I was just trying to understand the result, and so it could be that calls or contacts relating to the Mental Health Act are increasing. But that's not necessarily bad news, because the response is less apprehensions.
That was my point. Is it because of the training that the officers and their awareness and their ability to deal with things in a different way, or, it's either way? I would just suggest, as I sit here and the things that I've learned in the 6 years I've been on council, mental health is becoming, it's the biggest thing probably. It's tied to everything. So I've learned so much, and I'm just trying to understand more of it. That's all. It does jump out on the page.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay.
And by Mental Health Act, I mean, you've got different types of subsets within that below that: no contact with police, attempt suicide, and a threat of suicide, voluntary transport. Generally, there are slight increases. Well, actually, with the exception of one, there is actually a slight decrease, mind you, of one occurrence where there was an actual apprehension. I would have to delve into more about that sort of subset to get you a more definitive answer. But to your point, it does speak to the growing concern of mental health in our communities. Right, and the importance and the necessity of supporting those in a crisis, and as well as their family members, to give them the support that they need.
Just speaking for myself, one of the things that I found particularly interesting a couple of years ago is that we had members of your team who are involved in the mental health aspect and are sort of first liners and have the expertise. They actually came to a police services board meeting, I don't know, 2-ish years ago, and let us know. It might be interesting to have another conversation and let the public know in advance that they're coming, and see if people would like to learn a little bit more about what they do. But it's certainly changed. In my mind, they were here 24 months ago, but it's certainly changed since that point in time.
Absolutely, yeah, and similar to similar to what
Okay.
we've done before by having detachment presentations. If that's something we can help out with, absolutely. We can certainly have someone from MCERT, our officer, come in and have a conversation, be part of a conversation and provide a presentation to the community.
Okay, very good. So item 7.2, did you want to speak to that? Or is that, are you saying that so that's the CamSafe launch?
Right. So we did it. We did a CamSafe launch where we've encouraged businesses as well as owners of houses to consider registering through CamSafe. We did put that out in social media and traditional media as well. So we'll be utilizing our auxiliary unit officers to go out, engage with members of the business community, and encourage them to do the same. It's a great tool for us to work collaboratively as a community, so that if there is an investigation, a police investigation, the officers can seek permission to use the owner's footage, hopefully to solve a crime so we can clear it.
Very good. You know, as feedback, we didn't register as in my personal life, but right after our meeting, and I'm trying to figure out if it was coincidence or not, but we did have one of your officers knock on my home, and we've got a camera, and they wanted to use the footage. So it was quite interesting. So I would encourage people to participate if they can. Okay, item 7.3 is Settlers Creek Community Association.
Correct. So what we've done there is we basically made a linkage for members of the community to members of the community in a neighboring town who have created a similar type of community, if you will, and they'll be looking at exchanging information and best practices.
Very good. Then 7.4 is the OPP 23 to 25 strategic plan. Did you want to speak to that, Verso-Light?
Yes, unfortunately, at this time, I can say it's status quo. It's not available for, not ready for public disclosure, not for anything. It just hasn't been finalized. It has been done, and I anticipate that should be rolled out shortly to our communities. In the meantime, it's still status quo. You can expect an effective and efficient police service delivery by the Dufferin County Detachment.
Very good.
So Chair Taylor, just to qualify that, the agenda item talks about the strategic plan, which is in fact published. I think the detachment commander was speaking about the action plan.
That's correct. I thought that was the question. The strategic plan has already been shared publicly. Correct.
7.5.
And I believe that was, sorry, Mr. Taylor, I believe that was shared sometime in December, the end of December.
Yeah. 7.5 is the Black Cat next steps, and I'll just talk to this one, and Inspector, if you want to weigh in, that'd be great. So in the past, the Black Cat, which is a small device that tracks people's movements in a car throughout the town, and would monitor the times and the location and the speeds of when someone was driving, and it would provide that information to the OPP, and then the OPP would use that to determine where they would put their vehicles. It's been determined that it would be better use of resources if the town actually implemented that and ran where the Black Cat was located, and then provided the information from the Black Cat to the OPP, and then the OPP can decide what they want to do with that information. So the town needs training on that. So the town staff is meeting with the OPP in the next couple of weeks. I know there's been a date set, Inspector. And
that's correct. I believe it may be April 4th or 5th.
Oh, great. Okay. And they'll get that training from your team. And then the Black Cats will start to be deployed around May 1st. And the reason for May 1st-ish is just because the weather gets warmer, and these are cold sensitive devices. So they'll be employed throughout the spring to the fall, and we'll see what that does for town safety as we go. Would that be an accurate assessment, Inspector?
Correct. Correct. Yeah, unfortunately, the Black Cats just can't be deployed during the wintertime because of limitations of the battery life, so they're not really used. And as a tool the town can use to collaborate with our community and with the Dufferin Detachment, where it's complaint driven, and then the town can put the devices up, and then we can have a conversation with our community about what we can do to increase awareness of speeding perhaps in a particular area, as well as putting officers at the right places at the right times for the enforcement aspect of it. So, and we've also discussed having open conversations about that data. So we're being transparent with our communities and letting them know that we hear their concerns.
That's great. And then the last one, I guess, is yourself and I again, Inspector, and this is complaints regarding 4th Street and Broadway. And just so everyone knows, 4th Street is right by Greystones. There is signage up there saying that it's unsafe to turn at certain points during the day, and yet we continue to have people doing that. They're turning there, and we've had complaints from people who live in that area. And just to be clear, it was not Greystones who complained. It was residents who live in that area who are complaining about the flow of traffic and the unsafe conditions of those turns. So I guess, Inspector, you and your team will be aware of that in the future, and people should be aware they may get tickets if they're going to continue to practice that at that intersection.
Correct. We've already been out there, and we are tracking it as a complaint area. I myself was out there a couple of weeks ago doing some enforcement. I didn't see anything, but I was out there. Hope to be out there again tomorrow while I'm out on the road for a little bit as well. So we are taking it very seriously, and just a good time to remind residents of our communities that there are ways to report non-emergency traffic complaints, either by calling Star OPP or 1-888 number, or using the online citizen self-report. So it'll help us get the data we need to be intelligent led.
Very good. Okay, so that ends the presentations from our inspector. So I think unless there's further comments or questions, we would receive the information given from 7.1 to 7.6. Board members, Ian and Mayor Post, all in favor? This? Yes. Okay, very good. So that passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Inspector. Appreciate that very much. We used to name it based on the old inspector, so we need to come up with a new name for the file. The ward report just doesn't work anymore. We need something different.
I'll leave that to your good judgment, sir.
Okay. Yeah. So items for discussion and reports. Item 8.1 is the Orangeville Police Services Board policy. I guess Member McSweeney, are you going to speak to 8.1, 1, 2, and 3?
Yeah, I'll deal with them all very quickly. So,
okay.
So 8.11 is one of our policies that relates to the requirement that we participate in the hiring of the detachment commander and the periodic performance review of the detachment commander. This policy was originally based on, in large part, on something put out by the OAPSB that was quite useful. You recall, board members, that there was a chart and we had a policy that we built around it. Well, we still do for the new policy that we've revised for CSPA compliance. But I flipped it over to Lisa Darling, the director of the OAPSB, and she acknowledged to me that, she didn't really have any comments on it, but she did say that they were working on a new one and that she would give me a heads up when that new template was available, and then we can take some learnings from that. But so until that occurs, we are going to use the one that we've revised and developed ourselves. And that is contained in D3L. 8.1.2, just a heads up, the town council, I don't know, I guess it was a month or so ago, or maybe longer, passed a resolution with respect to intimate partner violence and gender-based violence. That was an excellent step forward in that regard. And the board looked at that and decided to establish its own policy in support of that resolution. And we have done that. And that is our new policy, D3W. All of these policies, by the way, just for public consumption, will eventually be, and very soon, in revised format published on our website. So they'll be available to the public on a complete basis. 8.1.3, that's, I think, just the resolution that the town did and the companion letter that resulted from that. So that's just a receiving item.
Okay, very good. Board members, any questions of Member McSweeney on these 3 items? Oh, seeing none, can I have a motion to receive? Ken and Mayor Post, all in favor? Yes, thank you very much. Okay, so this is 8.2, and this is an update on all of the grants. I will speak to 8.2.1, 8.2.2, 8.2.3, and 8.2.4, and then what we can do is have a discussion as a group after I go through them, and we will approve and receive them at that time. So 8.2.1 is the enhancement grant. We did receive our first portion of money. So 166,280 is what we were approved for, and the final installment of 41,000 is going to come soon. And the grant concludes on March 31st, and that's on page 105. 822 is the RIDE grant. Final report's been submitted. We've got $12,717. And the reason, and that's on page 109. And then 8.2.3 is the community safety and policing grant. So we got $37,000 received at the end of February of this year. And the total amount awarded on this one, it's just spectacular, $449,000 given to us over the 3-year term. So kudos to you, Mary Lou, for all the work that you do to be able to drive that for our community. And then the last one is 8.2.4, which is the court security and prisoner transportation grant. So it's $223,000. The town got a credit for just shy of $56,000 in February, and the balance will be paid in the fall of this year. So board members, any questions or comments on these 4 items?
I just had a comment, Mr. Chair, and this came up in council meeting last night as well. I just wanted to echo it that we're very, very fortunate to have Mary Lou. I mean, I don't think, we often don't realize it. I don't want to embarrass you, but there are many communities out there that struggle mightily to identify grant opportunities. And quite apart from identifying them, executing and being successful in gaining some of that grant money. And so, there's always, often jobs are defined by the individuals that fill them. And sometimes it's difficult to replace those individuals. And I think Mary Lou falls into that category. But I just wanted to assure the public, and the board has been aware of this for a while, and as part of really our whole governance framework initiative is to try to institutionalize a lot of the things. We can't, clone Mary Lou, but we can institutionalize a lot of the processes and procedures and policy issues that we think are valuable in writing. And so we've done that. We've asked, Mary Lou and the board has worked together, and we've developed a policy that codifies for future generations of boards, the grant process. So we won't have Mary Lou forever, but we'll at least have something in writing to remember her by.
It's interesting. Not everyone will pay attention to the details of the police services board, and I certainly understand that. It's dry material, but it's very hard to explain in a Facebook post or a social media release the details that's described with this. Like, you simply can't add them up, and you can't say, hey, we got these number of grants, because it would leave too many questions, and it would blow up in a way that people wouldn't understand. But it is exceptional. And what this means is that the taxpayer doesn't have to fund these things when we get the grants, or we're allowed to do over and above programs that we wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. So anyway, I guess enough on that, but kudos to you, Mary Lou, and to the board for the work that we've done on these things. Okay, so if there's no further questions, if we could have a mover and a seconder to receive this. Ken, thank you. Ian, thank you. All in favor? Yes. Okay. So that brings us to 8.3, and this is the post and pre-meeting service standards. It's on page 111 and page 112. Chairman or Vice Chair McSweeney, did you want to speak to this item?
You usually do it, Mr. Chair, but I'm happy to report that we are continuing to bat 1,000 on our compliance with our own meeting service standards. So they're there to make sure that we stay on track, and we're following them, and we're staying on track. Amazing.
Excellent. Hey, for fun, I thought I was late putting these things in because I put it in on the weekend before, and they were actually due on the Tuesday after the weekend. And I was so disappointed that I didn't get them in on Sunday that anyway, I was excited to find out that I still hit my date regardless of my tardiness. So Yeah. Okay, so if we could have a motion to receive 8.3. Mayor Post and Ken, thank you. All in favor? Yes. So that's great. And then we move on to 8.4, and Mayor Post, I think this is where you want to include in your March 8th for the Dufferin Joint PSB meeting, and that would be an inclusion for your expense of the meeting as well. Correct? So if we could, board members, just realize that we're putting in that one extra item for Mayor Post. And for 8.4, is there any comments or questions outside of that? No? Okay, can we have a motion to receive this report, receive and approve this report? Ian, thank you. Mayor Post, second. All in favor? Yes. Okay. So that.
Mr. Chair,
yes.
Sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to make a comment. So these claims come before our public, in the public agenda for public disclosure, because our policy that we developed a couple of years ago that act as a guideline for approving and describing what kinds of expenses can and can't be charged. As I've been in contact with other boards with respect to this upcoming April 1st deadline, I've come to realize that many boards don't pay anything, number one, but more often they don't have any policy. So they do pay and don't have any policy. Mm-hmm. So once again, I mean, I think this is part of our public trust responsibilities to make sure that we're disclosing these amounts and that we have policy guidelines in place to make sure that they're charged according to our guidelines.
That's great. Thank you for that. So 8.5, this is the Zone 5 meeting that took place on March 12th. So we have all of the meeting materials, and it's on page 134 of your agenda. And Ken, you went to the meeting. Could I ask you to provide a summary of the discussions that occurred at that meeting, the Zone 5 meeting on March 12th?
So the presentation at the Zone 5 meeting was on leadership, and leadership refers to policing. And
I think we're just missing your microphone, Ken. You're just.
Can you hear me now?
Is he very quiet?
Can you hear me?
A little quiet.
A little quiet? It's got to be my headset. Hear me now? Okay. So the presentation was on leadership and leadership in the policing community. More particular about the democratic shift of Canada with the newcomers coming to Canada and the importance of recognizing the newcomers through equity, diversity, and inclusion training. The presentation talked about that because of this, policing should take a more focus on this type of training and aspect in the community. And police boards should consider that in their policies and procedures as well. Of it. And the other question I also had too for you, Mike, what kind of training, like EDI specifically, does the OPP need?
Sorry, the question was what EDI training does the OPP provide?
Yeah, equity, diversity, and inclusion training.
Right. So I can say that as part of the new CSPA, there is going to be mandatory training for all police officers that will include a component for DE&I. And in terms of other training, the OPP has various types of internal and external training offered to all members. And whether that's e-learning or learning in person, there's also learning specific to courses, depending on like a supervisor course or any types of leadership courses, as well as recruits get course training specifically to DE&I. I'm probably missing a few others, sorry, off the top of my head. Having said that, obviously it is a priority for the organization. It is a priority for policing and is intermingled into our policies, into our procedures, as well as into our strategic plan. And that goes into our local action plans as well.
Very good. Is there any other questions for Ken this time?
Ken, I don't have a copy of the agenda in front of me, but my recollection from Joanne Fields, who's the secretary of Zone 5, is that there were elections for the executive. So perhaps you can report on those.
Sure. Nobody put their hand up, and the zone decided to keep the current person. Currently us.
Okay, so I think that's Jim as chair, me as vice chair, and Joanne Fields as secretary. There was an issue in the bylaws that seemed to prohibit Joanne Fields from another term because she wasn't a member of a police service board. So I don't know whether this was done, Ken. I think I had suggested an amendment. I think that the bylaw should have or was amended to allow her to be put in place again. But we'll be able to tell from the minutes whether that happened. I unfortunately wasn't there.
Okay.
They were looking for you, Ian.
Ken, just as a thought, just so you know, it is still quite hard to hear you. You may want to watch back the meeting. You'll see what I mean when you watch the meeting back. It is hard to hear you. The provincial appointment piece that was mentioned in the summary of that meeting can you share that discussion as well?
They didn't really mention anything about provincial appointment. They just said that the government's still going through people the process. They're just asking for an update. Some boards.
They're asking for an update?
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Some boards are still missing provincial appointees.
I see.
Continuously asking for updates.
Oh, okay. So that was what it was about. I gotcha.
Was your question relating to the status of the regulation that is due with respect to OPP detachment
What it
boards?
was about, Ian. It just says
Okay,
provincial
yeah.
appointee, and I was curious what the details were, the context, so that makes sense.
Yep, it could be that. It could be something more as well. So.
Okay. Very good. Any other questions on Zone 5? Oh, okay. You have a motion to receive that report from Ken. Mayor Post, yes. Ian, can you second that? Yes. All in favor? Thank you. So 8.6 is the action register update, page 137. And I guess my inarticulate view would be, wow, like that's a lot of action going on, lots of things complete. So I don't know, board, does anyone want to speak to this item or?
Yeah, just to say that Mary Lou and I haven't had this discussion yet, but at some point we're going to have a discussion about the coexistence of the action register and our work plan. The board will recall we have a new policy on general service standards and a work plan attached to it. It may be that the action register becomes obsolete in favor of the work plan, but one way or another, we'll continue to track things.
Okay, thank you for that. So motion to receive that report. Mayor Post, Ken, all in favor? Yes. So 8.7 is the board governance framework. This is on page 62. Vice Chair McSweeney, did you want to top line this or how did you want to approach that?
Yeah, so I'm going to make it as succinct as I can. Yeah, so I'll just, I think I'm going to just go through this subpoint. So 871, on the logo, the OPP, as of April 1, of course, this board becomes the OPP Detachment Board of Orangeville. And so we're interested in changing our logo. The OPP is actually producing a logo that it wants detachment boards to adopt. And I understand that's going to be available at some point this week. So more on that when we have a look at it. In the meantime, we've got a mock-up that we've been using on things that we may use for some brief period after April 1st until the OPP suggested logo becomes finalized. The training, the CSPA training, so the new legislation requires mandatory board training that is in the course of being developed prior to April 1 in order for board members to continue to have authority to act. So they have to complete the training before April 1st to be able to act. Well, unfortunately, the training is not available, and I understand that an abridged version of what will ultimately be more extensive training modules is going to be produced. I understood that it was going to be produced ahead of April 1st so that boards could quickly pass the training course in 30 minutes or so and then comply and pick up on April 1st with their full authority to act. It may be that the training modules for OPP detachment boards are delayed, in which case there's going to be a gap between April 1st and the actual date of that the training is made available, where there's we'll be in limbo. That limbo being we won't have any authority to act, but I think there's a workaround to that. I'm going to be suggesting it at a Zone 3 meeting that's coming up at the end of the week. And the workaround, of course, is that we continue to act, and this is what I would recommend, that we continue to act as a board and do all of the things that we need to do in order to achieve what because we have a pretty full agenda for the next 3 or 4 weeks. We do everything that we need to do in order to complete that agenda. And then at the end, once we've completed the training, we'll simply go back and ratify everything that we've done during that stub period that really is out of our control. But I don't want to lose momentum on the initiatives that we need to complete. So I think that will be our solution. And that's going to be the solution that I suggest at the Zone 3 meeting. So there are a number of, I don't even know where to begin on this one. There's a number of outstanding issues, important issues, not just technical issues that relate to the CSPA. I think between myself and a number of other boards, we've made a list of those and sent them off to the ministry. We haven't heard back yet. I'm not sure when we'll hear back. These are the kinds of issues that will come up for some boards more than others, and I'm not worried about them. I don't think they'll stop us from, doing what we need to do to be compliant by April 1st. When clarification is obtained eventually throughout 2024, we'll simply have to make whatever adjustments are necessary to accommodate the clarifications that we've received. So I'm not worried about it, but there is an outstanding list, and some of it's quite serious for some boards. 8.7.4. So last night I gave a presentation to council that seemed to be received well. And so council is now updated. If anyone on council has any questions, then I've invited them to submit those questions to the board, and we can answer them.
That's where that would end, is it not? So 8.7.5 is just more of an FYI at this point, is it not? It hasn't happened yet.
Other than it hasn't happened yet, so I am giving this presentation on March 21st. I would like this board's blessing to do that. I appreciate that you haven't seen the presentation. It's a 30 slide. I sent it to Todd. And my bad. I should have sent it, and I'm happy to send it to the board if they would like it. And I also think it should probably be part of the public minutes that get posted on the website. I mean, I think it's a real education tool, and I think something that we might want to use with our friends in Shelburne and others. It really describes what is going on. It describes everything you really need to know in a 22 or 30 slide deck about the CSPA, which, it may sound like a lot, but it's a big piece of legislation. So yeah, that's all I would say about that, Todd. Other than I've got a couple of sub-point add-ons that I just wanted to run quickly through.
Sure.
So I had an 8.7.6, which I think we've already, can't remember whether we covered it in open or closed, about the community member appointment. So that's with council.
Yeah.
And the under the new legislation, which gives rise to a regulation under which the Orangeville board is the boards in Dufferin County have been reduced from 8 to 4. The Orangeville board is one of those surviving 4, and we've the regulations will, we know, increase our membership component from 5 to 6. decrease our provincial appointments by 1 and increase our community appointments by 2. So those 2 new community appointees will be appointed by a committee that's been appointed by council. And I don't think that they can really move much further than they've done to date until that regulation comes out. And it's one of these things that it'll come out when it comes out, but we're expecting it sooner than later. 8.7.7, I had just to say that, Mary Lou and I have been working on our general service standards. This will all be part of the materials that go out eventually to the board this week and posted online. And I'm actually quite happy with the way that we've really slimmed down our general service standards policy. Mm-hmm. And we've developed a much more workable template for the work plan. So I think when you look at it, it's not complete yet, but I'm pretty happy with it.
So when you say these things, just make sure we're all on the same page. I don't want to be the slow person in the room, but there is no 8.6 or 8.7. You're making these up as you go, right?
Purposes of the meeting.
Okay, right. Very good. I just want to make sure we're all on the same. I am following along.
This is just like I said at the beginning, I want to add the following subpoints to the agenda. Okay. So we're just doing it in real time. So a couple more, 8.7.8. So this really is.
Sometimes I think it's a test.
It is. And I think this is in the materials, the memo. So the umbrella document for our new governance process, which I think Mary Lou is in the package. I just wanted to say that, that's the umbrella to which will be attached the 2 bylaws and the 20 policies. So that when we say framework, it's all of those things. Okay. So I just wanted to give, for this purposes of this meeting, give the board that initial heads up that memo really is the guts. If you want to start early and not wait for the materials that come out tomorrow, that will contain the memo and the policies, you can start looking at that memo tonight before you go to bed and put yourself to sleep with it. But that's really the starting document.
Okay.
And then finally, this is the next steps, and I won't go through them again, but the next steps, and this will be available in the minutes. We've got a number of things we need to do. We need to have a meeting this week, and we need to have a couple of meetings in April in order to transform our working drafts of our governance material into final drafts. We'll have working drafts in place by April 1, final drafts in place by April 30. And I think even the working drafts will probably end up posting on the website as working drafts.
Very good. Okay.
No more. So we'll stop at 8.79.
I didn't know we could make up numbers as we went.
You can. I just invented that.
Okay. So then 8. Well, I guess we should. Actually, should we go through the 8s, or how do we want to go? Do we want to receive 8.7 through to 8.7.9? Yeah. Mayor Post.
Can I make the motion that we receive the update from the vice chair, approve the next steps, and endorse Vice Chair McSweeney's presentation to Zone 3rd that's coming on March 21st, and direct Mary Lou to put a copy of the presentation in the minutes of today's meeting for public consumption. That would be my motion.
Excellent. You were paying attention.
Yeah, that is a great all-encompassing motion. How about Ken? Do you want to second that? That'd be, yeah, okay, very good. All in favor of that motion from Mayor Post? Yes, it's unanimous. Thank you very much. So that leaves us to, we finished at 8.8. And 8.8 is the false alarms, and those false alarms are on page 143 to page 145. I guess just a motion to receive unless there's any questions or comments on false alarms. Yeah, Mayor Post has made that motion. Ken, you're going to second that. Thank you. All in favor of 8.8? Yes. Thank you very much. 8.9 is the Community Awareness Initiative. And so we thought we should just regroup on this and have a group discussion. So to summarize what has happened so far, there's been a letter sent by the Police Services Board to our partners, and that was done in early January, January 8th to be specific. The response was positive. Council has been informed, and now it's about participation. And in fairness to our executive, what are we going to call you? Just the queen of the Police Services Board. You did bring this forward and said, "Hey, what are we going to do about that for this meeting?" And we just didn't. So we should regroup and do something on this for. I guess this can be the May meeting, right? And put that out. So we should talk about how we want to go about that and what would next steps be to ensure that we're pushing this forward. Anyone like to pick up the baton on that and have a discussion?
Just in the break, Member Post and I were talking with Mary Lou about how to better push this whole initiative out to the public, and Mayor Post was telling me that council has a way of doing that by pushing its agenda out to people who have expressed an interest in certain agenda items in the past. So she's going to. I'm not explaining it very well, but she's gonna explain it better than me. We're over the next until the next meeting. I think what we're going to do is explore that, and then maybe have a discussion with it as an official agenda item. Because this is very passive, right? It was a great idea. You send it out, you get a flurry of activity, but then what we really want to do is have a more proactive
Momentum.
More momentum, more proactivity, and less of a passive approach to it.
Can you save us?
Yes. So one of the things that Vice Chair McSweeney and I were discussing during the break was the idea of working with the communications team to bring some more actual awareness to the public on, for example, when meetings are held, where to find the agenda, where to find our documents, any upcoming events that are coming, if somebody wants to delegate to the Police Services Board, how to do it, and finding a way within the town's website to do that. I've already scheduled a meeting with our communications department for later this week to start some of that conversation, and I'll have an update in time for our next Police Services Board meeting. I think the additional piece to this with the Community Awareness Initiative is that to our community partners, we did send out a letter and invited them to know who we are and how to get a hold of us. I would suggest that perhaps at the next meeting, we talk about next steps when it comes to re-engaging with those community partners, to give them maybe a more formal invite that if they want to delegate to us, if there's anything we can partner with them on, this is the steps of reaching out. We've done that initial first launch with our letter, and I think a follow-up letter just to say, we appreciate that this has been received well, but if you do want to present to us, here's the next steps to follow. And I think with our community partners, that would be a really strong piece. With the rest of the public, though, we want that community awareness initiative to push forward as well. And that's what I'll work with the communications department, with the town, with some different ideas of how to push out to people, so that the public knows that they can, follow our, on the town website, that they can follow our calendar and get notified when there's a council meeting, a public meeting, a Police Services Board meeting, committee meetings, et cetera. And just make sure that there's some communications on how to make that happen.
That's great.
And once that happens, we can include it in in the transparency provisions of our policies.
That's wonderful. So my confusion still at this point, though, is for May, will we want to have something, or is that going to be what you've described?
I think that
I
think in May, the next piece is going to be to give an update on the communications piece that I'll have done with the town by that point. And I can also have a follow-up letter to community partners ready in time for the May meeting to have it put on the agenda. Okay.
Good. Okay. So a motion to receive and approve that update on the community awareness. Ian, thank you. Ken, second. All in favor? Yes. Okay. So 8:10 is the PSB website review. I don't know. Ms. Archer, did you want to speak to this at all, or do you think it's fairly succinct the way it is? Yeah.
Yes, I think that in the agenda itself, it outlines the next steps that we have taken. And then following this, the next big piece will be getting our governance package onto our website and then proceed with the community awareness initiative as well. So those are kind of next steps, but these are the steps that we've taken since our last meeting are outlined there.
Very good. Mona, do you have anything you want to offer? No, I'm just, okay. Any further comments, board members? No? Motion to receive that.
You're a bushwhacker.
Yes, I am. Motion to receive that information. Ian and Mayor Post, all in favor? Yes. I couldn't help myself, Mona. Okay, 811 is simply stating that the OA PSB membership renewal for 2024 was done. So it's on page 146 of your agenda. It's just an inform. There isn't anything to do other than receive the information unless you've got great discussions about the organization or what have you, but I don't think we do. So motion to receive that information. 811, Mayor Post, Ian, all in favor? Yes. And it's the same thing on 812, which is the Zone 5 membership renewal. It's on page 148 in your agenda. Motion for that, Mayor Post. Ken, second. All in favor? Yes. Okay. And then the CPSA Summit, Member McSweeney, you did attend this meeting. Do you want to give us a brief summary of what happened in that meeting at the end of February?
Best way to summarize it is it was very Section 31 board centric. So, and I heard a lot of, so it was packed. There was a main room and there was a secondary room, and I was in the secondary room. So there was a lot of people there. And what I heard from a number of different people during the breaks was that, it was at a very high level. It wasn't all that useful. I think a lot of boards went there hoping to have some specific questions answered to help them prepare for April 1st. And I think the general feeling was for the boards that were prepared, that actually understood the questions, it was probably more useful. But for the boards that were still scrambling around trying to figure out where to start, it was less helpful. Mm. So, that's one thing. And the other interesting thing about the structure of it was there was no live questions. So you couldn't go up to a mic and ask a question. All the questions were submitted electronically. So, which meant there were more questions and that they got to less of them because they didn't have time. So or maybe they just didn't get to mine. I don't know. That's quite possible. So there were some good points. I mean, I think there was some discussion about local. Lisa Darling and I had a discussion about this local board issue, which I'm not going to go into, but it's an important issue, especially for detachment boards that have a lot of members and a lot of municipalities appointing those members to that board. The local board issue is important because it relates to the issue of whether the municipal council retains bylaw making authority that can affect the detachment board, which it's not supposed to, but it's an interpretive issue. So there were a lot of issues, like that. And anyway, Lisa did say that the unofficial word from the ministry was that OPP detachment boards were not local boards. So, thanks for that. She couldn't get anything official out of them. So that's what we really need. Really need something from the government that's official that will allow the boards where it's an issue to say, here's what the government says. Training was discussed. I mean, we've already talked about that today. The best presentation, I think, was by Ryan Teschner, who is the Inspector General of Policing at the IOP. He's a great guy. I mean, he is a former member of the Toronto Police Service Board, a lawyer, and really knows his stuff, and really a focused on good governance and all of the things that he's going to need to properly fulfill that responsibility. A couple of things that he said, though, really reinforced to me that the best path here is a good governance path. So the IOP is going to be a risk-based enforcement entity. And so, what that really means is they're going to look where the risks are and they're going to inspect where those risks are, whether it's a result of a complaint. I don't think they're going to do random audits, but it could be. They go in and they inspect. They will apply an enhanced, what he called an enhanced monitoring framework, which sounded pretty ominous. He had a whole slide on it. But my translation of that is that, they've written down the markers that they're going to be looking for, and they better find them. I mean, it's not a threat. It's simply a question of part of their inspection, part of their investigations, where it's relevant, are going to be, identifying, do these markers exist or don't they exist? So, it made me feel happy that the path that we were on and many other boards are on is to put in a good governance system that it's going to identify those markers readily. And that's really my report. I'm glad I went. It was worthwhile. I made some good contacts. That's the reason I'm doing this Zone 3 presentation. They came up to my table and approached me on it. So it's a good way of networking too.
Very good. Thank you for that. Okay, so that puts us on to, I guess we need to, well, first of all, any questions, any comments? Seeing none. Motion to receive that report. Mayor Post and Ken, thank you. All in favor of receiving 813. Thank you very much. I already gave a report from the in-camera session, so I'm going to skip that. Item 10 is the adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting, and those start on page 149 of your deck. Is there any comments or questions on the meeting minutes? Seeing none, can I have a motion to receive the meeting minutes from January 16th? Mayor Post. Ian, thank you. All in favor? Yes. Okay. 11, we have no correspondence. Question period. We are at question period. Is there anyone on the phone, Mona, that would like to? No? No chair? Okay. And anyone in the audience? No? Go ahead, sir. Oh, you have to put your mic on.
Good evening, board members and wonderful staff. And I have a comment and a couple of questions. And this comment is to Inspector DePasquale. I have noticed over the last several weeks, more police presence in town and more lights flashing, which is fantastic. And as a citizen of Orangeville, I appreciate it.
Thank you for that. Be sure to pass along your appreciation to the detachment.
And question is, Black Cat. I've asked, well, we actually had the Black Cat up almost 2 years ago, and it just happened to be in July, and when everybody was on vacation. And I don't think we got a good reading on the street. And I guess it ran out of power after 3 or 4 days. I know it was up for 13 days. I'm just wondering, well, I'd like to request the Black Cat on Cedar, if at all possible, and in a good time period, which would be better than the holiday season. It seems that speeding hasn't stopped on the street, and it goes along with the noise. Sometimes I'm awake for 2 hours, like 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, because I can't get back to sleep. The speeding vehicles, mainly pickup trucks, with the acceleration, because right where I live is the start of the climb of that little hill, and everybody seems to accelerate right there. And there is a big problem. Like my neighbors complain, but I don't see any neighbors here or even in council. So. But they come to me and complain. So I would like to request a Black Cat at some point, charged up for a good period of time, to get a good reflection on on the problems on the street. Also, another question is those speed signs, that flash how fast you're going at, where they're set up. I've noticed like College, Town Line, Zina, Elizabeth. Do they really work to slow traffic down?
They're not necessarily working to slow traffic down, right? We're recording that information as well and making decisions on what would be done with that area for a traffic study.
So it really doesn't mean anything.
Well, it certainly does, right? So we would be deciding what would be done from a traffic calming perspective afterwards if the data showed that there was an issue on those streets.
Okay.
So for example, on Zina, it just came to council. It was proven that there is no need for traffic calming, and council, myself in particular, and with support of Mayor Post, we said we disagreed with that and wanted it sent back to council for further discussion. And that's what was being done. So that's why those signs are there. The Black Cat is something different, right?
Yeah.
That data is used to have the OPP be involved in a decision-making process where the flashing signs are, I suppose you could say they might slow traffic, but that's not their ultimate purpose. It's to use the data so that town staff can make decisions about traffic flow and what would be done for calming.
Well, I've noticed it's not a question of slowing me down. It's just, I look at the speedometer, I look at the flashing sign just to make sure that my speedometer matches up to what's on the sign. So,
Yeah.
I don't speed through town. There's really no need for it.
Yeah.
Need for even on Highway 10, like, if you're doing 100, you're the slowest vehicle on the road.
Your commentary around Cedar Drive, we can bring that forward, and I certainly will. And Mayor Post has heard it as well. She can make her own mind up. We'll bring it forward with staff. But I just want to caution you, like it was there before, and it proved to be, it said there wasn't an issue, is what that data said. It doesn't mean we can't try again at a different time. I understand you think it was at an inappropriate time. So we can probably look at that again, but we'll follow up with staff and see, what next steps could be. But I just want to undersell it to you, right? So
I understand.
yeah.
Like putting it up in July, the schools are closed, the buses aren't running, people are on vacation, so you don't get a proper perspective of the situation. Like May, early June before school's out. It's totally a different area. Same as a long weekend. Long weekend, there's nobody on the streets. They're all gone away.
Yeah.
So
your point is heard. I hear you. We'll bring it forward and see what we can do.
thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
But I just had a question. Is the speeding on Town Line or on Cedar Drive itself? Both.
On the way here, BMW, right on my butt. And coming along, I was probably the 109, and it was right on my tail, right through till I turned on John Street. And it's like that every day, all day long, whether it's going out of town, coming into town. Now, we used to have Radio Bike, and he made this town a fortune, sitting at Town Line in Cedar. He was so busy writing tickets, and that hasn't happened for a long time since he retired.
I got a ticket there. I did.
Well,
Yeah. It was about 20 years ago. Okay. Thank you very much again, Mr. Uline. Yes, please go ahead, Mayor Post.
I just wanted to add to Mr. Ulini's point that some of the work that the town is doing through the Infrastructure Services Department on traffic calming is looking at things like working with the OPP with the Black Cats to deploy them more frequently in different areas, as well as our smaller speed signs. The best way that we can make enforcement decisions at a police level and traffic calming decisions at a town level is to have better data. So you see those signs up because they're areas that have been identified as problem areas, and we're trying to get better data and ongoing data about what we're seeing. So Zina and Elizabeth, for example, where they're located on Zina, I would argue probably isn't the area I know that that was the area that you had identified, but I would argue that that's probably not the area where we're seeing the most speeding. So what we've asked for is for them to move the sign to a different area within Zyna, keep it up on Zyna, but move it to a different location and see if that changes what the read is or not before we move forward with traffic calming measures on the street. We have a traffic calming policy at the town that was approved by council a couple of years ago, and the idea was to make data driven decisions and not just make impulse decisions based on anecdotal data. So right now, the data that we have collected from Cedar Drive shows that there's not a problem. I agree with you that I think maybe doing September might be a good time to do it, or even May, to just do a reread. But I would say that if we get a second reading that still shows that there's not a problem, that would be enough for us to say there's not currently a problem on Cedar Drive. I don't disagree with you that there are one-offs where you're going to see the one guy who's speeding or you're going to hear acceleration noises. But if the data shows that there's not a regular occurrence, and the highway traffic manual does give parameters on what that would look like, at what percentile does it become a problem that would require additional measures of traffic calming. And we don't have any of those markers right now on Cedar Drive, on Zyna, on Elizabeth. So we are still working with OPP and our infrastructure services team to get all the data that we need and to have more movement around the town to make sure that all streets are covered. We have problem streets outside of Zyna and Elizabeth and Cedar that we want to make sure that we're getting data from all of them. So you will see it around town, or hopefully not see it around town a bit more often, so that we do have that great data. So thank you for your questions and your ongoing advocacy.
I have one more comment on that. If I was to get some form of radar to prove that there is a problem on the street or in the area and present it to you, would that be of any value, any use?
I can't imagine why we would do that, Rick. Like it would need to be an official capacity, right? So we're willing to explore it again with you. I don't think you need to invest your own money or time. We'll make sure that we do what's right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me. So thank you for that. We're on to new business, and I know that we wanted to speak to the joint meeting. Is that right? Or do you think we've done that?
I don't think we've heard a report on the joint meeting. I didn't go, and it's not on the agenda, so I'm introducing it as a new business item.
Okay. And so the joint meeting, Ken, you went to that joint meeting. Did you want to share the details of that?
Lisa did as well. Lisa, do you?
Yeah.
I can do a very brief update, and maybe Ken can fill in some gaps for me. The biggest portion of the meeting that I think requires the update is there was members of the community team that came out and did a presentation to the joint board to talk about some of the work that they're doing from a community liaison level. And that was an exceptional presentation. I would love to have that team come to this board and do a similar presentation because I think it was really valuable talking about, what they're seeing when they walk the beat downtown and when they're doing, community events and those kinds of things. So I thought it was a really great, and Ken, hopefully you're feeling the same way that I did, but the entire membership of the joint board found that to be really, really beneficial to have those officers there. It was a fantastic presentation, and I'd love to invite them. The only other item that I would add on the report from the joint board update is I shared with the group the intimate partner violence and gender-based violence motion that we passed at this level, and it was endorsed by the joint board. I brought it up because it was International Women's Day on that day, so it was a great time to be able to talk about it. And I shared with them the motion that it was passed at council and at Dufferin County Council and then at this board, and the joint board moved a motion at their level to endorse it as a joint board. And I know that each of those member municipalities had received it at their board level as well, and they were planning on making similar endorsements of our motion. So Ken, I don't know if you have anything else to add or if anybody has questions.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add. I agree with Lisa about bringing out these people in the community to see what they have. The other thing I have to add is they missed you, Ian. They were hoping you would be there to give them an update about the new legislation.
I was in Portugal, so I mean, one of the things that I watch for this in the meetings, I mean, I know it's an overly legalistic approach, but it's a joint meeting of Section 10 boards. There is no board entity. So hopefully they will, each participant in the joint meeting will take back that resolution to their respective boards, and there'll be a multiplier effect. It'll actually be better. They'll all approve it.
Very good. Okay. Anything else under new business? No, seeing none. So the date of the next meeting is May 21st, and we are at the point for adjournment. Can I have a motion to adjourn, please? Mayor Post, Ken, all in favor? Yes. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much, Inspector. Good to see you.
Thanks, you as well. Good night, everyone.
Night.